Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Green. I'm director of WFA. Delighted to be with you. We've got a mixed audience with us today, a bunch of people who are part of the HALO program, a bunch of people who are part of the ANA cross-media measurement program, a bunch of people who are part of the UK is the Origin program, and others as well. The purpose of these sessions is to talk to a wide community who are interested or actively involved in deploying one of the deploying the HALO system in a market under the Origin team or the ANA team. So here is our agenda. What we'd like to do is just give you a few updates on what's been going on. I'm just going to talk to you briefly about some stuff we've been working on. Then we're lucky to have Chloe Dennis from Origin, Martin Lawson from Origin. These guys are going to come along and give us all an update on the progress that the Origin guys are making towards their beta trials, which are due to start pretty soon. That's a very exciting moment. Then we've got Sorin Pataline, who is a director at Mars, and he has been at Mars for many years, and he's a big part of WFA, been with us many years as well. And he's a big proponent and part of the HALO program and the Origin program as well. So we're going to have a chat with Sorin. Lastly, we've got this new segment we'll be featuring in this and in future HALO Town Hall sessions, which we are calling Get the Tech. Today, we are looking at the virtual persons framework, which is one of the core technological pillars of HALO and Origin and ANA for that matter. Craig Wright is one of the architects, and he is going to be giving us an in-depth, well, probably more a summary of the way the virtual persons framework operates, so also known as the VID. So that, I hope, will be useful for you all. Okay, one thing to say, this session is being recorded, and we will distribute the recording afterwards. I should also say, if you would like to ask questions, you can do at any stage during this session. You can see the Q&A widget. It's likely at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can use that at any juncture to put your questions in. We will try and find time to do those questions, probably at the right stage in the presentation, i.e. if your question is for Chloe and Martin, we'll take those questions for them. If your question is for Craig, we'll do that at the end. Okay, right. So moving on, what I wanted to talk about is the refresh for the governance framework we've introduced for HALO. Now, this is an industry consortium, and it's very important that it has good governance. We have refreshed the steering committee for HALO. These people are the nominated representatives within the steering committee. Very important meeting where we can decide how the HALO program operates and dictate on some of the strategic issues which are in front of us. And we've also introduced a whole new governance framework for the program as well, which is in place to ensure that the program operates as appropriately as an industry consortium, that it is a neutral entity, that it is here to represent the interests of all stakeholders in the industry as well. So that's just an interesting point for you all. And as you can see, Sorin from Mars is one of the stakeholders in the HALO steering committee. So we're looking forward to hearing a little bit from Sorin shortly. Okay, so governance refresh and refresh of the steering committee, really important piece of information for you all. A point about some events. We've been speaking at a bunch of events recently. There was the EGTA Market Intelligence meeting in Madrid earlier in March. We went to talk there about what HALO is and about how it works with the local programs. So we did that piece. Shortly afterwards, we spoke to the new Polish Advertiser Association. There was a meeting there with POR and with some of their industry stakeholders, and we went to speak similar agenda about what the HALO program is and how it seeks to change cross-media. And again, something quite similar for Union de Marque, the French Advertiser Association. The Origin guys were live in Paris to speak with Union de Marque, and we were there as well to give a short presentation on the role that HALO provides. Lastly, just last week, we were in New York for the IAB as the Cookie Crumbles session, privacy-focused session that the IAB Tech Lab had organized. And We had my colleague Tej Ashnatali there presenting alongside Stephen Webb-Jones and Raimundo Mirasola from Meta and Google, respectively. They were there to talk about a bit like what we're going to do today in the Get the Tech section. They were there to talk about the privacy-preserving nature of the Halo framework. So just a quick note on some of the presentations and talking points we've been doing recently. We'll also be speaking about this in the forthcoming WFA's Global Marketer Week. It's our annual event. We hold it in a different location each year. This year it's in Toronto, and we're doing it in partnership with ACA, the Association of Canadian Advertisers. There are a number of events taking place in the week. On the Wednesday of the week, we'll be holding a session for media leaders, and within that session, we plan to do some stuff, some talks on Halo. So that's another place where you can expect to hear from some of the progress with Halo, and indeed we'll have some of the Origin crew with us there in Toronto, so we'll hear about progress that the guys are making there. Right, so that was a short update. Now, want to just ensure that these meetings remain on your radar. We will continue to advertise them and make you aware of these events as they come up. They happen every other month. You can register here if you like. You can just go to this QR code and you can be put on the distribution. I would encourage you to do that, and your colleagues as well, if you want to stay in touch with what's going on here. Next one is on the 5th of June. Again, at the end of this session, we'll distribute these materials, including the video and the deck, and you can find a link for the future session as well. Okay, we are here now. Great. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleagues Chloe and Martin, who we are going to hear from on the exciting news with only a few weeks before beta trials launch. So guys, everyone's very excited about progress you are making. So I'm going to invite you to come off mute and begin your screen share.
Great, let me just switch sharing and I'll share our slides, Martin. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, hopefully you can see that.
We can.
Cool, perfect. Over to you, Martin.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Chloe and I will kind of walk you through kind of where we're at with the program, and particularly our path through to launch. We're going to talk a lot about the beta trials, and they really are significant in the sense that they're kind of the final set of advertiser and end user trials before we launch the service at the back end of this year. And secondly, because they're the first opportunity for end users to see real live campaign data in the Origin platform. So we're pretty excited about this. Our end user community are too. So without any further ado, I'll kind of jump into the content. But if you have any questions or you want to know more at any point, please shout. So as I just said, the beta trial will give access to real data to end users for the first time. The trials are going to launch the back end of this month, possibly early May, and then run through towards the back end of this year. They'll involve 30 or more advertisers and their respective media agencies, and involve campaign inventory data from linear TV, from YouTube, Meta, and by the end of the trial with TikTok also. As I mentioned, the scope there is focused on having real campaign data within the system that end users will be able to log in and see and commission runs, measuring their own campaigns. And progressively throughout the trial, we'll be releasing kind of additional feature sets into the service, partly as we build towards launch, but also to get kind of end user kind of feedback on those features, so we can kind of course correct as we need to ahead of kind of full market launch. Some of those features will include things like the ability to slice down into different demographics in terms of audiences, to look at how campaigns are building out reach on an incremental basis, and the service will get more kind of elegant and sophisticated as well, with things like email notifications coming on board throughout the trial. We'll be onboarding our advertisers very shortly in the next few weeks. They'll be doing that in waves as we bring them into the service. And I guess the reason we've had such interest from our stakeholders in this is because they can access their campaign data ahead of full market launch. And in addition to that, they get to feed into the future product scope of the platform. so we can build it in their image rather than them having to rely on it just being a service that it gets launched and they have to make use of. So that's kind of the I guess an overview of the service, just to give you a sense of who's involved in it. Perhaps if we go to the next slide. Maybe we skipped on next.
I think we've lost a slide somewhere. Apologies, it's not in the pack here.
Okay,
unless we've hidden it. 1 second, let me just have a quick look. No, it's not here.
Not to worry. So we did have a slide showing all of the Origin stakeholders. That's 30 or more advertisers from a range of different categories. That group has been growing in number progressively over the last few years. Similarly, we have good representation from the agency community. As of last week, we now have all 6 of the global media networks actively being stakeholders within Origin. The final network, Havas, joined the program last week. And we also have great representation from the media owner community within the UK as well. So we have Google, Meta, Amazon and TikTok from the digital platforms, the DSP, the Trade Desk, Ozone and Newsworks representing the news brands, Royal Mail representing direct mail, the audio division of Bauer. We also have the Print Publishers Association representing print. And very recently we announced Samsung has joined the program as well. So we've kind of got strong representation across a range of different channels beyond those which we'll be reporting on within beta. But it just shows the level of interest and intent there is within the wider marketplace to be part of Origin as we develop the long-term plans. We can unpack the long-term plans as probably part of a different conversation. The kind of conversation for today is really about our path to launch and how we navigate through beta. And there's nobody better to talk us through that than Chloe.
Cool. Thanks, Martin. Hi, everyone. I'll take you through a little bit around our trials approach and plan. So I guess the first slide I'd like to show you is our timeline view. Caveat that this is a very rolled up view and there's kind of many sub plans behind each of these things, but we're in a really exciting time. As Martin said, we're gearing up to ingest real data. We're gearing up to onboard our EDPs, have our campaigns surfaced. So it's an incredibly busy couple of weeks for us at Origin. And this is kind of where our timeline takes us throughout up until July. So if I take you through kind of high level, the items that we're looking at from a trials beta entry perspective, as Martin said, that we will have new features available throughout the span of the beta trial. So we will be kind of dropping these features when they are ready. In terms of kind of what we'll be kind of going in with for beta entry, it's a fundamental piece of scope which will kind of enable the cross-media journey. We'll have email notifications and we'll bring in things like demographics, incrementality reporting at a later point within the quarter of delivery. These will be fed into trialists and there'll be kind of engagement to kind of alert trialists that there's a new feature ready and they can kind of have a play with that feature and give us some feedback. In terms of onboarding, we'll have there's an onboarding approach in which there's various kind of consent and campaign IDs that need to be shared with us. We then set the various accounts up. So there's a kind of stream of work there in terms of onboarding. Once you're onboarded, you will be inducted, which is where you'll be given your username and password to access our system. We'll do that in tranches of people. So we've got 3 induction sessions in which we'll take you through the platform, get you logged in, kind of onboard you in terms of high-level principles and things the platform can and can't do at this point. And they will then be kind of set off to use the system as you would in your day-to-day kind of role. As part of that testing, there's 2 approaches. So there's an unmoderated and a moderated testing approach. The first one is a self-guided test. So this will essentially be you using the system as you kind of would in your day-to-day role. So you can log in at any time, you can kind of play around with the system, you can download the reports you want to, and it is completely self-guided. There is a moderated testing element as well, in which you will kind of be tested in a moderated environment in which our trials manager, our user researcher, will be kind of watching back your tests, and you will have a homework task in which we will ask you to kind of go through an end-to-end test, and there will be you will kind of speak through your feedback as you kind of make your way through the tool, which is quite nice. And then secondly, in the form of moderation, there will be a desirability studies testing path, which essentially is putting what we perceive as desirable features in front of trialists to give us feedback on whether that would be a useful feature before it gets into code development. So this is very much in the early phases of design. We will put a new design in front of trialists, get initial feedback, and we can kind of build on that feedback to develop the correct thing for that point in the trial and the trialist's needs. Finally, there's engagement. So there's a whole kind of comms plan, go-to-market plan, in which engagement, PR, and training are 3 different factors. So if you're a trialist and you're kind of onboarded, there will be fortnightly touchpoint calls. There will also be a Teams channel for you to kind of connect and feedback in. There will also be a way for you to raise things to us. For example, there might be bugs in the platform when we first launch. There might be a request for a new functionality. So there is a way that you can feed that back to us. And there will be kind of PR and training documentation as well. I guess finally, as part of the engagement approach, we will, and this is kind of similar to what we saw in alpha, we saw champion users or super users come to life quite naturally, and we expect to see the same through beta in terms of level of engagement. So we kind of are wanting to pinpoint those champion users and kind of use those people as a kind of train the trainer type user, so they can kind of share knowledge, share feedback, and kind of help people get on board as well, which will be quite a nice feedback loop as well. So I'll move on quickly to our approach to testing. I've spoken about that just a little bit now, but the trial will consist of 3 types of tests. The first one will be our self-guided tests, in which you can play with the system yourself, a live test, which will only be a smaller amount of trialists who will take part in this. It will be via a user testing platform, and we will take you through a homework task. And then desirability studies, which, as I mentioned, is design-led, and there's no code built here. It's very much kind of first impressions, take you through kind of the design and what it's intending to do. And then in terms of the research questions that we'll be asking across these 3 types of tests, it'll be a set of questions around current ways of working. So how do you currently analyze a campaign's performance, for example? What tools you use, what data is most relevant to you, and this will be a response that will track to kind of ascertain current ways of working. There will be a second set of questions in terms of specifics around features and things that you would like to see built. So for example, we have a page which is select the media types. We want to understand how we could improve on that page. Is that useful? Does that make sense at that point in the journey? And then finally, the end-to-end experience. So how would you rate your experience going through kind of start to finish? And in each of these, it says, please explain out loud. And that's because in the user testing platform, you kind of verbally speak through your feedback, and that is captured, and we can analyze sentiment off that as well, which is quite useful and also time saving for our team. So these are the types of questions that we'll be asking throughout. And then finally, if we look at help and support, we understand that throughout beta trials, there will be a level of support required, and we'll need to kind of provide a more thorough feedback loop to trialists, which will, number one, help us shape our backlog, but also inform trialists on status. There's a bug in the system. Has that been fixed? Can they progress through the journey kind of based on that bug fix? So these will be the feedback loops, and the feedback pieces will be raised through by the trials team directly to our product team. We will have a kind of weekly feedback meeting in place, and these will be categorized in three ways. So we will have either an improvement area for an existing feature. So there might be something that we already have in place, for example, email notifications, but perhaps that needs to be improved slightly, and this is how. The second one is a brand new feature, so something we don't have on our backlog, or perhaps it's a feature that is quite low down in terms of our priority, but perhaps we need to reprioritize based on the majority of feedback that is kind of coming back. And then finally, a bug, which something isn't working as expected, it's been noted, or there's kind of a slightly a different user behavior than we're expecting, and the system isn't kind of isn't reacting. So a bug will be raised, which will go through our normal development cycle and pushed out to production, in which a trialist will see that fix in place. But that feedback loop is really important for us, for both an Origin team perspective and also a trialist perspective. So we'll have these kind of loops in place as well. That's the end of our slide section, Matt. I'll pass back over to you.
Thank you. Very interesting indeed. I will invite the audience. If you do have a question, now is your time to ask it before we move on to the next section. I've got one of my own, if I may ask it.
Sure.
So,
Yes.
have you encountered any particular challenges, hurdles, as you've approached this important point that you would care to disclose? What have been your, your biggest obstacles?
That's a good question, Matt. Almost too many to mention. It's been a long and winding road, I think it's fairly safe to say. But none that we haven't been able to get over, I guess, is the truth of the matter. So, it is, the success of Origin is reliant on the collaboration of a wide number of stakeholders. And everybody needs to make sure that they're comfortable with the journey that we're taking. So kind of bringing everybody on board and maintaining that kind of level of collaboration and kind of collective endeavor, I think, has been a significant and ongoing challenge throughout the whole process, but one that has paid dividends to date. And as I guess you've just seen, we've got a clear line of sight of a path to launch. So there has been loads of twists in the road, lots of ups and downs. There'll be many ahead of us, some of which we can see coming, some of which we can't. But fundamentally, we've got the UK media industry at large aligned behind Origin. I think it's fair to say, with a clear line to kind of releasing cross-media measurement at scale for the first time in this marketplace. So we're really excited about that. We know there's lots of challenges ahead, and we're somewhat ready for them, but we're confident that somewhere or other we'll find our way through and get data out into the hands of people who want to see it as soon as we can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, look, there has been a question that's come from Atin from Pepsi as well. How is the team thinking of success criteria? Good question as well. What does success look like? If you can answer that quickly, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, very quickly, perhaps Chloe, you can jump in on this as well. I'd say it's fundamentally it's about putting data that end users want to see in their hands in a way that they can be used to make informed, sensible decisions about future kind of media investment decisions. I think that's fundamentally what success looks like. It's about delighting the market, making sure that end users feel that what Origin is giving them is something of real material value that underpins the way that they work on a day-to-day basis. We have some of our stakeholders, some of the agencies talking about the industrialized use of Origin, getting ready to pipe in kind of huge quantities of Origin data to be used on a day-to-day level to inform, really as a foundational layer to kind of media planning as they see it in the future. And that really, for us, is, I guess, a success. It's not about Origin being another tool that people can log into on an occasional basis and learn a little bit about their campaigns if they've got the time and inclination to do that. That wouldn't be success. Success would be about actually creating a new kind of way of working, a new data source which underpins media planning within the UK and kind of becomes an inflection point in the way that the industry thinks about multi-channel campaign planning and all of that comes with it. So success for us is large scale, repeated industrial usage of origin data on a day-to-day basis.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Chloe. Very, very good. Very exciting. Right, let's move on to our next segment. Soren, would you like to pop on your video and come off mute? Hello, Soren. I'm going to take this slideshow down in a minute so we don't need this up because we can see you in the flesh here, so to speak. Soren, you are Senior Director, Global Marketing Effectiveness at Mars. You are involved in the Halo program. You're in our steerco, you're in our governance, as we saw earlier on. I'm aware that Mars is also a contributor, a funder, a participant within the Origin program as well. So obviously something that you believe in. But let's hear a bit about you first of all. Soren, can you just give us a little bit of background about who you are, the role you play at Mars? Be interesting for everyone to hear about, I think, if you don't mind.
Certainly. And first of all, thank you, Matt, for having me. So marketing effectiveness is very close to my heart because that's the role that I was hired to do in Mars, but also that's the role that I'm currently doing in Mars. It has evolved a little bit, but it was mostly about creating the culture of marketing effectiveness that the company has been recognized for by the industry over the last 12 years. As you said, I've been active in numerous WFA forums and working groups, from the Insight Forum, also the Media Forum, and because I live and breathe measurement at Mars, I was super excited to hear about the AAFA initiative, what we used to call cross XMM, cross media measurement at the beginning, now very nicely called Halo. Yeah, I was there from day one because I believe that this is the right solution that the industry needs right now. And yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to engage with you in this project and with the amazing team that you've put together. I think those are fantastic folks that I always learn from every single meeting that we had.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear, Soren. So you've begun to answer the next question, which is why is Mars part of this program? Maybe you could expand upon that a little bit, though. You know, what do you hope to achieve from this program?
I
By
would
the way, we should say, you know, for the benefit of those who it's not clear to, I think it is becoming clear to people, but this is a complex, multi-stakeholder program. One which is Halo is, you know, just for the benefit of doubt, Halo is the program for everyone on the call, which is collaborating in the center to produce methodology, to work on methodology, to produce open source reference implementation software code, which is taken by local markets to execute and build full production systems. So yeah, back to you, Soren. You're a part of this program and you're part of the local program. Why is these multiple programs important to you?
Because we want to make it work. I think both myself, but also Mars, I would say, I can speak on behalf of Mars. We are positively obsessed about measurement. I think we're always looking for data. Evidence-based marketing is at the core of what we do. So we want to have control over the outcomes of our investment. And as we all know, investing in MTA and MMM in various kind of media measurement solutions was suboptimal. I mean, it is still suboptimal. We are unhappy with the outcomes with the lack of solutions and the representativity of those solutions. And also I think there's the global element that Halo brings. I mean, yes, we're talking today about US and the UK, but Mars invests in over 80 markets, and all those markets are important. In all those markets, we would like to measure reach and frequency and to measure outcomes. So, but in a centralized approach. So I could come up with other examples, but I think that's why Mars is part of this.
And so you are a believer in reach and frequency measurement then? I mean, I think Mars is quite, you're a big adherent proponent of Ehrenberg Bass, I believe, aren't you? You believe in reaching all category buyers. Is that fair to say? Is that why you're attracted to which measures reach and frequency?
Certainly, that is fair to say. And that what shocked me was when I joined Mars, I came from the tobacco industry, zero ATL. And I landed in the world of Byron Sharp, and reach was everywhere. And I was still shocked that at that time, I was not really able to get reach figures from my agency. We're talking about estimated reach figures. We were still talking a lot about frequency in those days because over 80% of our investment was TV. So frequency was controlled somehow. But I think in today's world, I mean, we all know it's multi-fragmented, new players appear every day. We have no clue how to basically allocate frequency across media choices. And if we would have gone with one choice, that would have been fine. We could have controlled that frequency, but we are not. I mean, the lack of reach and frequency measurement today, it forced siloed investments. It restricts the freedom that we have. And I would say also it promotes waste. From an advertiser standpoint, we probably have this hunch that we're over-frequencing.
Well,
we're not reaching as many people as we could.
Yes. It's hard to establish the empirical data about that. It's chicken and egg problem because we don't have the solutions to help us measure that, do we? But yes, intuitively we feel we have waste because we must do. We're bound to. If only we had the measurement solutions which could help us understand that.
But I don't want to be misquoted here. So it's not that we're investing too much in media. That's by far. I mean, I'm having conversations on a regular basis with our CFOs that we're not investing enough in media, but we just want to invest with more visibility over where that investment goes when it comes to reach, of course, and frequency. Yeah.
And what you mentioned MTA and MMM and other measurements, and I know that I'm sure there's many measurement use cases and exercises you do at Mars. Were Halo to be an origin, were these programs able to be transitioned, developed to measure other outcomes, which is part of the plan, it's part of the aspiration that we can look beyond reach and frequency in the future? Where would you like to see the program go in the future, if I may ask?
I think you know me. I was always the one who raised the hand for outcome-based measurement. I mean, yes, I know that reach and frequency is our first stone that we will turn, but I can't wait to get started on the second part of this initiative. I mean, we do have a lot of questions around trade-offs, media trade-offs between geographies, between brands in terms of investments. And I know what's the value of a common approach, and I think that's the biggest benefit that Halo brings into the advertising space is that we have a common approach to make those trade-offs available across markets. And it's very similar to what we've built in Mars. From day one, we built our measurement solution based on single source panel data. With a very consistent output, with a consistent methodology, but with different data sources, because each market, each panel is built differently from Nielsen to JFK to Kantar and Marketing Scan. So I personally see the value of unifying data sets and to unifying the methodology because it has given a dictionary or a language to speak effectiveness at Mars. It has given us the ability to move ads across geographies with confidence, to move money across geographies with confidence. So I think that the common approach is a big thing that I'm advocating for.
Fascinating. All right, that's very good. Thank you very much indeed, Soren. I think we've covered all our questions. Really enjoyed that. Now I'm going to invite anyone, if you do want to ask questions for Soren, why not? You can do right now, but we have only got 15, 20 minutes left. So if we don't get any more questions, we're going to move on to our final section. So I'm just going to hover and sort of tread water for a second. Aha, what's this? Now, okay, here we go. Are you ready for this one, Soren? Let's see. Tony, is this intended for Soren? If reach is not based on persons based, eyes/ears on, or contacts or attention, what is its value? So I guess what Tony is asking here is like, if that reach data does not have the additional criteria of understanding whether it is attentive reach, what is it? Is there any point? Or maybe he's not being so blunt, but he's saying, really, we need to be striving for reach metrics which have those criteria baked in, which enables us to have a better understanding of if that was a true attentive reach. I think that's where Tony is going here,
Yeah.
i.e. he's saying a viewable impression will not, reach based on viewable impressions is not real reach. I think that's what Tony is striving for. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I half and half agree with it. I think we've always had that problem. I mean, when we were doing TV 20 years ago, I mean, we did not have 100% attention, but we still consider that a reach point. I think it's much easier these days to measure attention than it is to measure reach and frequency. So we can easily cross-merge this data set that we will get from Origin, for example, with a measurement of what's the average attention for that specific channel for that type of campaign. And yes, we could get to a closer value of reach. But I think the biggest challenge is the reach and frequency.
I totally agree. I totally agree. In my view, the right place to start is with reach in the way we seek to calculate it. That's a minimum viable product, I would suggest. And from then on, it's going to be possible and exciting to see how the tools can be developed to incorporate attention metrics and others, so we can better understand how attentive those reach points were. That feels like the right direction of travel, but you start somewhere. And I think the right place to start is where we are, by calculating based on whether those impressions were viewable or not. You can understand, indeed, the Halo system is one which carries a lot of metadata to understand a lot of information about the nature of the impression, whether that was an attentive impression or not. That's something that could be incorporated into the future, in my view. Right. Thanks for that question, Tony. Let's move on. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed that. Thanks for being part of the program. It's great to have you on board. Very important that you and Mars are on board. Right, last part of this session, we have Craig Wright, who is software engineer at Google. Craig is going to give us a summary of how the virtual person framework works under our new session chapter we're calling Get the Tech. So Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how virtual person framework works?
All right, thanks, Matt. Here we go. So we're going to talk about the virtual people framework, which is the thing that is the foundation for the reach and frequency measurement. Fundamentally, everything else that we put over this is mostly a scalability and privacy and security layer. But this is really the core of how the measurement happens. So quick agenda. We're just going to do like a quick overview of Halo, so we can see how the virtual people framework is situated within the whole, and then we're going to get into the virtual people framework itself, and if we have some time, we'll do some Q&A too. So this is Halo. It takes a bunch of inputs that are associated with the local market, be they panels, exposure events from say walled gardens, smart TV data, set-top box data, whatever. And it brings those in, and via a set of APIs that are surrounding these two core technology pillars, the virtual people framework and the private reach and frequency estimator, it transforms those inputs into measurement reports and other metadata, where the other metadata are things like what actually are my campaigns, and how can we connect our campaigns across, say, multiple digital platforms and TV, this kind of thing. So that's it. Local inputs through the measurement system, with the two technological pillars producing reports and metadata. So let's look at this a slightly different way, a little more functional, a little deeper. So if we dig into that kind of center box from the previous slide, you could think of sort of three phases. So there's this idea of input harmonization, data processing, and then output aggregation. And each of these phases is carried out by a different actor in the system, where the input harmonization is really about building the VID model, and it's done by the panel provider, the model provider, and getting logs and other assets associated with the panelists, as part of that model building process, right? So you have the panel data itself, and then you get whatever logs are associated with them across the set of publishers that you're interested in modeling. So that then produces this virtual people model. And then we go to the event data provider. This is a generic term we use that encapsulates broadcaster, publisher, and platform, and anybody with event data, basically.
Greg, can I just very briefly interject to ask
Yeah,
you
of course.
to click that? There's a little window that says you don't have permission to play. Yeah, get rid of that. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, sorry about that. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep on going.
Okay. So input harmonization, model building, and then we get to this data processing phase. And what we're doing there is we're applying the model from the first phase to the entire set of publisher logs within the publisher's walled garden, perhaps, or via some provider that the publisher can use to do this. Then we take all of these logs, and upon request, what we call a fulfillment, which is a request for some measurement, a sketch is created, which is just a compact representation of a subset of the logs, right? So the logs are labeled. We get the subset that we want. We collect them up. We create the sketch, and then we send them out to this output aggregation phase. I think a really important part in this data processing phase is that, and this is like key to the privacy and security aspect of this whole system, is that the virtual people framework allows us to take a model and slice it up into a part for each publisher, for each platform, for each broadcaster, and those event data providers, right, that's what we call them, can take their part of the model and they bring that into their network, and then they can operate on their logs, and their logs never have to leave their own premises. They can, again, opt for using a vendor for doing that, but you do have this key property that we don't have to just gather up everybody's logs and put them in one place. That fundamentally this allows for a distributed processing, and I think I think this is really important for the security story, is the distributed nature. So going back to our flow chart here, we get some request for measurement. The event data provider provides a fulfillment of that request, and then we go off to the actual Halo, the core of the Halo CMMS, which is this output aggregation thing. And this is a centralized system that takes these sketches, which are encrypted, and performs a secure aggregation across them, combining them without ever revealing the contents of them, adds privacy protection, which is in this case differentially private noise, and then those aggregates pop out into a set of reports that can be consumed by marketers and agencies, and even the EDPs themselves. So that's kind of a ride through the entire processing. So as we move forward, we're gonna kind of get into this input harmonization box and look a little bit more at what happens there. And that is our virtual people framework. So at the core of the virtual people framework is this virtual population. So what is a virtual population? It's so we take some government census data, right? So a survey of the population, we call this an enumeration survey sometimes. And we take that enumeration survey and we look at this population that we're modeling in the survey, and we basically create a virtual person ID for each person in that population, but not tied to any particular person. We say, well, there's, I don't know, several millions of people in New York. Well, we have several millions of VIDs in New York, and we, sort of realize that approximately half are male and approximately half are female, and so half of them get, the appropriate sexes, and then we, kind of look at the age and we layer the age over that, and pretty soon we've built up, a representation of the population that we're trying to model, and so now we have, this space that we can project our logs and our other raw measurement data onto, and this is going to be, a way that like fundamentally calibrates the output measurement, right? That all logs, all views, all impressions, right, have to be projected onto this virtual population. It is the basis of all reporting. And again, all measured activity is assigned to one or more virtual people, because of course, we could support some co-viewing models too. So the virtual population is the thing that is the output of, the logs get projected to the virtual population. Keep that in mind. And now we're going to talk about how the logs actually get projected. And there's two cases here. There's sort of directly using a VID model in the case that you are like you have digital census data, like full logs, like a complete representation of the impressions that were served on your property. Then we use kind of this kind of the, what do we call it, original way of doing a VID model. Sometimes we don't have that, right? So if we think about, in the linear TV case, maybe we have a measurement panel, maybe we have set-top box data, maybe we have smart TV data, and we can combine all of that into, a weighted representation of the views that actually happen, but we don't have like, an actual record of each impression, each view that was actually delivered. In this case, where we have kind of this partial view of all the impressions, we use a data fusion method, and we'll get into each of these next here. So when we're using a VID model, there's two pieces. There's first this demo correction. So what we know is that the panel is sampled kind of uniformly over the population, so it's representative of the population. And we might get some demographic signals from the publisher themselves. And what we want to do is we want to kind of see how the publisher's demographic signals match up against the source of truth in the panel, and provide a way to correct the publisher demographic signals based upon the panel. And that's in the form of this matrix that you'll multiply through the publisher's signal to get kind of the corrected signal. So demo correction is the first part of applying a VID model. The second part is how we actually turn panelist identifiers, or more generally user identifiers, into virtual people. So if you're looking at your panel, say, and you notice that on average people have 1.2 accounts, or maybe they share the accounts, whatever it happens to be, you want to build your model so that when it's seeing these these raw IDs, they get projected in a way that accounts for the number of IDs per person that are seen. So what that allows us to do is take the publisher logs and match the identifier generating behavior of the panel and thus kind of we're approximating the true reach curve. And that's it. It's demographic correction, and it's this reach modeling. And the very cool thing that comes out of this is that when you apply the model to impressions, what you end up with are impressions that have an assigned VID. So if you want to know reach, it's just a count distinct operation over the number of VIDs. And then frequency is similar. It's like, well, how many VIDs did I see once or twice or 3 times? And by having projected it to this virtual population, you have this like fundamental consistency thing that happens where, hey, like, give me the reach of the entire campaign. Okay, great. That's like 1 million or something, right? And then we'll break it down by demo. Well, okay, so you'll get your, let's say, 12 demo buckets. And what you're going to find out is that when you add up the demo buckets, they will actually add up to the full reach that you see. And not all methodologies guarantee this consistency. In fact, typically, I think we've actually proven that a methodology that guarantees this is equivalent to a VID methodology. But you will see that like a lot of like weight-based methodologies can't make these guarantees. And of course, the guarantees are all based upon, the consistency guarantees are all based on like non-noisy data. So when we add noise to the aggregates, like there might be slight inconsistencies due to the noise, but overall, you'll see something that is generally matching up. Okay, so that's the use of the VID model itself. And then we'll move on to like the second case, which is this data fusion. So in data fusion, we, let's say, have some set-top box data, and we have our panel. And what we want to do is, well, we know the set-top box data is maybe only from like some, subset of cable providers, which, represent, again, like a subset of households. And let's say that we have a methodology to sort of take that set-top box data from some, wherever we get it from, and extrapolate that to the whole population. And what we come up with are like a set of weights that would be associated with each impression, with each view. Then, the fusion basically entails, taking the weights that are associated with our measurement from the set-top box and panel, and just projecting those weights into the correct number of virtual people, and doing that in accordance with the calibration panel. And so that's how that works. And to recap, the first way is basically taking census level impressions and converting those one by one into VID labeled impressions. And the second way is taking kind of this data that isn't all of the impressions, but some subset, weighting it appropriately, and then using the weights to project to the correct number of individuals in the virtual population. And that's the story with the virtual people framework. I guess we could take questions from here with our 2 minutes.
Yeah, with our 2 minutes left. So we may just get through one question. So if you want to stick one in, we'll see. We do have a question actually from our friend Norman, who you may remember, Craig. So Norman's asking 2 sort of related questions, I think, really. First one is about cookieless world. So to what extent would Halo be impacted by the deprecation of cookies? I think that's kind of what
yeah. So at this point, we're looking at using all first-party identifiers as a way of driving the VID labeling. So I mean, if you're some publisher, right, and you have a first-party cookie, you're basically using that first-party cookie as the thing to drive the virtual people modeling. And so, from a point of view of third-party cookies, this doesn't really matter that much. I think, where it will start to matter is, as we accommodate more and more publishers with the same size panel, that panel will either have to get bigger, which nobody wants, or we'll have to come up with better ways to find correlations between publishers. And we, like Raimundo and Stephen, I think, spoke about this last week or the week before at the IAB conference, and we're looking at trying to get, device level VID labeling, so being able to push a VID model to a device and incorporate that into the framework. I think if Halo was a complicated project, VID on device is like Halo squared, I think, in terms of its complexity. But it's very promising for handling, sort of making VID ubiquitous, let's say, and more accurate even in the cases where it's used today. And yeah, the VID device is going to be a long journey, and I think we're just starting it. So I imagine that will be the topic of one of these town halls, in the distant future.
No doubt, it certainly will. Look, questions are rolling in, but we do not have time. I pledge that we'll take these and follow up in the next session. We may be able to get some of them. We may be able to do some of them as follow-ups over email. Thank you very much, Craig. Very useful presentation indeed. Thank you very much, Soren. Just great to hear from an advertiser and how important this is to the advertiser cohort. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Martin. Exciting to see how much progress you're making in local markets. Next time we meet, this session in 2 months' time in June, we'll look forward to hearing a bit more about how those beta trials are progressing. I hope we can bring you back for that. All right. Thanks again to everyone for attending. Hope you found this useful. Have a great rest of your day.